Hi, my name is Joe Gramillion. You just found my YouTube channel, Texas Towel. I'll be joined sometimes by my wife Amy, my son Daniel, and our little labradoodle Becca. Today, I want to talk to you a few things about something that I just did recently, a really big purchase for us, kind of a not really a life-changing event, but just something me and my wife had thought we'd tried to do for a long time, and we actually finally had a chance to do. We bought a 2021 Winnebago Revel. Wow, right? If you don't know it, it's a camper van. It's a really nice camper van. Sleeps two. We can fit three in here, drive. My son's 15, a little bit big. He may not sleep with us in the van. If he comes with us, we'll probably talk about him camping outside, but it's just kind of a travel van for me and my wife to get out and go do things, right? So the first thing, some people want to ask, and I just wanted to share with you guys today is our whole process for buying this. Revel, right? Why now? Why did we buy it? I know a lot of people are thinking, well, okay, a lot of people are buying these because of COVID, right? And the pandemic, and they want to get away from the pandemic. It's nice, it's safe. You got a bathroom in the back. Nobody can come in except for you. You control the environment. You wipe everything down. You can eat in here. You can sleep in here. No hotels. Just drive around. No airports. Good. Hey, that is a great reason to get one, but that's really not why we did it in our story, right? So I just kind of thought I'd share a bit a little bit of our story, maybe kind of give you guys some idea, and then help you moving forward. So for the past 10, 12 years, my wife and I have been kind of talking about what we wanted to do when we got closer to retirement age, right? So I'm not there at retirement yet, but we're getting there, right? So we're kind of thinking, well, I've always wanted an RV. My wife thought the whole idea of an RV was kind of cool, right? But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, yeah, we got this great big RV. We got to drive it. I've got to store it somewhere. Unless we're ready to live in it full time, it may not be worth doing something like that. Maybe we had something smaller that might work. I don't know, right? But it would sure be cool to do that, right? So one day, a couple years ago, probably I guess 2.5 years ago, we were drove down to Corpus Christi, and we are on the North Padre Island National Seashore, which if you've never been there, it's absolutely fantastic. You can drive out on the beach, drive out on the dunes. They have a lagoon on the other side of the dunes, one of only six lagoons in the United States, by the way. A really cool place. So we're walking along the beach, and we come across this older gentleman in a big white Ford, um, the Ford transport vans, right? He opened it up. He pulled out some solar panels out of back. He had this great big board with all the gizmos on it. I wasn't sure what the gizmos were at the time, but now that I know, he had a solar charger on there. He had an inverter connected to the batteries, and he had a bed in there. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh yeah, I converted this van. I drive around. I live in the back of the van." I said, "You're kidding me? You could do that?" He goes, "Yeah." And he says, "You should really check out some of the things that some of these people do, and some of these Mercedes Sprinters, because they get really cool and outrageous." And I'm thinking, hmm, wow. You get a smaller van size, right? You drive around and it's big, and not like the old vans back in the 70s and 80s when we were kids. We got a bigger van, a Sprinter van, tall enough to hold some people in here. Might be something we're checking into, right? So I get home, immediately start Googling, Mercedes Sprinter vans. Well, the first thing I come across is the Mercedes Marco Polo. And if you've never seen a Marco Polo, go look it up. It is made by Mercedes. It's a version of a camper van. Holy smokes, it's really nice. It's got a nice big refrigerator, indoor refrigerator, bed set up in the back, living space, all kinds of stuff. It's really cool. So we got really excited about it. We ran out to Mercedes and said, "Hey, can we see your Marco Polo?" And the guy looked at me and said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "The Mercedes camper van." He says, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about." He says, "They're only sold in Europe and in Canada because they can't bring them here because they haven't been approved by the National Transportation Safety Board." Like, okay, well, but you know what? That's a good idea. Maybe other people make these things. So we started researching, and lo and behold, we found this stuff, right? So the first place I go to, and I'm searching stuff like this, I'm thinking, Winnebago, right? We all knew Winnebago from when we were younger, growing up. So I went to Winnebago. They have all these camper vans, all kinds of camper vans. Some are Mercedes chassis. They got one on a Promaster. And then we started looking and looking and looking. We have these things all over the place. Pleasureways got some. Thor has some, right? So it's like thinking, oh, wow, okay. So now maybe we don't have to buy the great big huge Class A, or the B with that barely makes it up the road, or the C that barely makes it up the road with the slide outs, right? Maybe we could get really something that we could use and enjoy. So I'm thinking, wow, okay. So let's see if we can't research this a little bit. So my wife and I, we went nuts on this, right? So we started watching all kinds of YouTube videos. I Googled everything I could about camper vans, found out that these things were called Class B for some reason. Nobody really understands what they are or why they call them Class Bs. But we looked. So we looked at Pleasureaway, we looked at Airstream, we looked at Winnebago, we looked at Thor, anybody. We looked at Sportsmobile. There's a place in Austin that does upfitters. I thought about maybe trying to upfit these myself, trying to find out all kinds of stuff you can do with these things. Then we started looking at, Airstream base camps, which are real cool trailers behind. My son, he wanted us to get an A, like no way we're going to get the great big A. Then we started thinking, well, maybe the B, or maybe the B is too small, maybe we need the C. So my wife and I, we started going looking at the C, trying to get all this stuff figured out. Well, it soon became apparent that there is a lot of crap out there, right? There's a whole lot of these trailers, there's a whole lot of these camper vans, there's a whole lot of these Class C's, Class A's. How in the world do you ever figure out what you're going to do? Now, I love my wife. We've been married for a long time. My wife sometimes has a hard time making a decision. I sometimes, on the other hand, make a decision real quick, and she thinks it's awful too quick. So I'm thinking, okay, if we're going to make this work and we really want one of these and we have to be happy with it, we're going to have to figure out a way to decide on what we want. So I talked to my wife and said, we need to figure out just exactly what it is you need. We have to come up with lists of what we want, what we need, right? And then just trying to figure out where we can compromise and not compromise, and that'll narrow our search down to something that we can focus on and get it small enough where we can figure out what we really want. So as we started looking at all these YouTube videos and visiting all these dealers and reading all this stuff on the web, a couple things became apparent, right? My wife, first thing my wife wanted, and I wanted too, that was pretty easy, something she could drive, right? So it wouldn't be fair to get this great big Class A, get a trailer, get a fifth wheel, or get something that she wouldn't feel comfortable driving, right? So we went out and looked at some Class C's and looked at some trailers. Well, first it became apparent she didn't want to drive a trailer, right? She didn't want to have to work with hooking the trailer up. She could drive the great big truck, but she didn't want to pull a trailer behind. And I looked at the trailer too, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to be the responsible one for backing up to it, hooking it up all the time, making sure it's unhooked, driving it all the time. I don't want something I have to drive all the time that she can't drive and can't enjoy, or I'm the one stuck having to drive 18 hours to get us somewhere, right? So the trailer was out. So Class A's were out for the same reason, and then we went to go look at Class C's. Class C's were okay, right? They got some smaller Class C's. She got into it. She wasn't sure she could really drive it though because of the side outside the window, and it's a little longer, right? So she wasn't sure that she was going to be too comfortable with that, right? And if she's not comfortable, then that kind of defeats the whole purpose of getting in this. So then we started talking about it. Another thing we had to worry about Class C's is we couldn't park in the front of the house. Right, it looks too much like an RV. You're going to have to store it somewhere, and that means we'd have to go get it. We'd have to deal with slide outs, all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's not what we wanted, right? So that was the number one thing. It had to be small enough for her to drive. Second of all, my wife really wanted a Mercedes chassis. Whatever it was, it had to be on Mercedes. And the reason why she wanted it on the Mercedes was, the new Mercedes, the 2020 chassis out there, and the 2021s have all the nice bells and whistles. They got the blind spot detection. They got the adaptive cruise. They got the automatic braking. They got all that, the crosswind stuff, all that stuff that makes it really easy to drive when you start driving these bigger rigs like this and make it a little bit safer. I wanted that. Truthfully, I thought that would be kind of cool to have, but I wasn't really stuck to the Mercedes, right, chassis because if you limit it to just a Mercedes and you're just stuck with just a Mercedes because they got some cool stuff on the Promasters, right? The Solus, the new Winnebago Solus PX came out with the extended garage in the back, air conditioner, generator, all that stuff. It's really kind of cool, but it's not a Promaster, right? So my wife didn't really want that, and of course, when it comes down to kind of a tie, my wife wins on most things. She won on that. Another thing is in kind of the whole idea of drivability, she didn't want to drive something long, right? So we looked at like a Winnebago Era, and a Coachman has a Class B in a Mercedes that's long. The big 24, 25-foot stretch extended Mercedes on the dualies. No, she didn't want to drive that. It's too hard for the drive, too hard to corner. She couldn't park that. I have there's a guy who does daily driver. He drives an Era, and he does well with it and drives around, and it works perfectly for him. I could drive it. I don't think my wife would have been happy with that, so we kind of steered away from the longer ones. So we got to the shorter ones where we figured 22 foot would be long enough. It parks in a regular parking spot pretty much, easy to drive, about the size of a big truck. She could handle that. So that was, we looked at the shorter Mercedes, right? Something she had to drive. The third thing that we had to look at, third and fourth thing, she absolutely positively wanted a rear door. If you look in the back here, the nice thing about the Revel is the barn doors that open up, right? Also, like the I know Winnebago Solus, they open up, right? You can get out, in and out, in and out, in and out. It makes the van feel bigger, right? No bed in the way, right? Makes the van feel bigger. You can get in and out. The Winnebago Bolt had the two seats on the side, the Travato, the two seats on the side, right? You can get to the back, and also the Travato had the Murphy bed, so you can get to the back if you need it, just like the Solus was nice. We looked at the Ascent. My wife really liked the Ascent because the inside of it's really gorgeous. Problem was, couldn't get out the back door, right? So, I mean, it's got the couch back there, which is nice, but you can't get out the back door, can't use the back door. You lose a lot of functionality from just being able to walk in and out of this thing and open up the barn doors on the beach and everything, right? So, and I kind of like that too, right? Because, I mean, that is really cool being able to just open that up and look out the back and get in and out, A lot of functionality comes from that. And then the fourth thing that kind of piggybacked off the back doors was we had to have a bed that stayed a bed, right? So, not the sofa that folded out and you had to make it every night. And then in the morning, you had to pick it up and put it back to be usable, right? We didn't want that. I know that saves a lot of space, and a lot of people like that. We just didn't think it was going to be convenient for what we wanted to do and what we needed to do. So that kind of piggybacked off of number three, because if you put a sofa back there, you block the back door, right? You can't get in and out of it. So there was really no reason for us to do that. So, that was an easy one. And then of course that was really the big deciding factors for us was basically it had to be small, something she could drive, right? Something that easy to use, had to be on a Mercedes, had to get to the back door, and had to be a permanent bed. The nice things, like a permanent bed, like the Murphy beds. We looked at some Murphy beds. The Travato's got a nice Murphy bed. The Solus has a nice Murphy bed. Of course, the Travato's on a Promaster. Solus is on a Promaster. We looked at the Leisure Travel Van, and I know the Leisure Travel Van, they have a Unity that has a Murphy bed. The problem with the Leisure Travel Van, though, because it's on a Mercedes, right? The problem is there's no back door, right? Because they build a box. It's a box, right? And he can't get out the back door. So really, that cut that out of there. So that limited to what we are looking for. So we looked and we looked and we looked and we looked and we looked, and finally, we wanted to see a Revel. We needed to see a Revel. Looked everywhere for the Revel. Couldn't find it. Couldn't find it. As soon as somebody get a Revel, it would be gone. It would be gone. It would be gone. So finally, one of the local dealers here just up the road, they got a Revel in, and he said, "Look, this Revel is slated for somebody else, but if you want to see it, we'll open it up for you and let you look at it." So we drove up to the local dealer. We went and looked around it, hit everything my wife wanted. It was short. She could drive it. She's not intimidated by it. Back door, the bed that comes down from the roof. Again, it's made all the time. As a matter of fact, you can see we got it up right now, and it's made already. Perfect. So that was our whole decision process for this. Um, and then another one that I had was, it had to be easy to maintain, and we could park in front of the house if we needed to. It wasn't going to cost me an arm and a leg or someplace I had to go park it somewhere. I wouldn't have to try to park in a 40-foot, a 40-foot, 30-foot Class A somewhere, or have to worry about putting a Class C somewhere else and like that. It had to be fit somewhere nice. And the nice thing about this is it's about the size of a Sprinter van. It's a little bit taller because it's got the extended roof, but yeah, it's easy to maintain, so it works out pretty well. So anyway, we found a dealer who can finally go ahead and get us a Revel. Right, we went and picked up the Revel. It's probably been 2-3 weeks ago or so. We picked it up, brought it home. We've taken it out for a couple test runs that we'll talk about in later videos, and we'll share that experience with you. And then we know we couldn't be happier with it, and it's really, really nice to finally be able to see my wife happy, be able to find something, especially after looking for a couple years. Part of the reason it took us so long too for looking so many years is just there was no supply, right? I mean, everybody wanted these for the pandemic. I know everybody said, well, just wait a little bit and they'll start going on, people will start selling theirs, which of course it's happened, right? People who bought them or bought them earlier or who bought them during the pandemic, all of a sudden, decided it wasn't for them. Something changed with the work. So they went ahead and start selling them. Yeah, but, we wanted to buy something new that was ours from the beginning and we can make our own. And then, not have to wait till somebody decided they were going to sell it. So anyway, if you like it, like, subscribe. Hope to see you again in the next video. And, my whole point of trying to do this is just, trying to keep it real. These are going to be a little rough for a while until we figure it out. But anyway, let me know, what I can improve on or any other things. If you have any questions for me, leave me a comment below. Thanks. Have a good day, everybody. See you next time.